Welcome to episode 8 of Light on Leeds. Our guest this week is the artistic director of Red Ladder Theatre Company, Rod Dixon. Rod was a fantastic guest. He was really funny and engaging. I'm sure you're going to really enjoy this podcast. He talks about lots of the different things that they've got coming up in the community and how you can get involved. There is a small amount of swearing, but I'm sure you can cope with that. And he talks about all sorts of great different topics like, can art change things? Can theatre be used as political activism? So I think you're going to really enjoy this one. See what you think. So next up on the Light on Leeds podcast, we've got the wonderful Rod Dixon. Hello.
Hello, wonderful. That's an adjective that's not been used for me before. But anyway.
Glad to use it. And so you're the artistic director of the Red Ladder Theatre Company.
That's correct, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I came to Red Ladder in 2006. That's 13 years ago now. And the company was formed in 1968.
1968?
Yeah, so we were 50.
Oh, so you had your 50th. Yeah,
our 50th last year, yeah. Like a lot of people had heard of Red Ladder because they're pretty famous, and books have been written about them and stuff like that. And then they disappeared, and then I booked a show called Silent Cry at the last theatre I worked at in Plymouth, and it was written by Madna Eunice, who used to be the director of Asian Theatre School, and I'd never heard of Asian Theatre School, and they're a project that Red Ladder started. And it was a great play about death in police custody. And I went, oh, Red Ladder are still going. And then a few months later, the job came up. So I went, I'm going to apply. And whacked in an application and got it, which was amazing. But a lot of people were saying, I haven't heard of them for years. And in my first week at Red Ladder, we were unloading a set at the back of the carriage works, and this really pissed bloke went, fucking hell, Red Ladder, you still going? And I went, oh no, if the people of Leeds don't even know we're going. And it wasn't the company's fault. The company had specialised in theatre for young teenagers for 20 years, from like 86 to 2006. So the work was strong, but it was going into youth clubs. They're not going to get Guardian reviews.
No.
And their audiences of like 15, 20 kids. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to make that kind of work, not because I don't like kids, but you're not going to change society by making work for 14-year-olds, because you can't make radical work. And it was great work, but it was also a business that was dying on its feet because there's no funding in youth work anymore, so they couldn't afford to buy the plays in. And also, it made my heart sink, the couple of gigs we did when I took over, seeing really good actors and a really good set and a really good sound design and a load of bored kids on their phones, looking at their phones, being teenagers. Because a lot of them had gone to the youth club thinking, oh, I'm going to chat up that girl tonight, or I'm going to play table tennis. And then they walk in and there's a set there. There's these Ponzi actors, and they're like, I'm not going to get a shag. So they were already moody, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm not interested in it at all. I want to make work for everybody, not just teenagers.
Yeah.
So for the last 13 years, I've been moving the work away from that. Well, it's moved away now totally.
Yeah.
So that's Red Ladder, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so can you talk about some of the productions that you've put on or that you've got on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's been my dream job, to be honest with you. And there's been some moments where we've made work which has literally sent a shiver down my spine. I don't want to be big-headed, but the reason I make theatre is to tell stories of people in struggle, basically. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Liverpool, and I wasn't into theatre at all. And I'll tell you the story of how I got into theatre. It's quite funny, but anyway. But I understand the struggle that people are going through, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and Liverpool was deliberately being. It was a policy of managed decline by the Tory government. Last Sunday we played the Charity Shield against Man City, and a lot of Liverpool fans booed the national anthem, and there's been a big fuss about that. Our Scousers are not patriotic. We boo the national anthem because England has done nothing for us except, trying to bump us off. A bit like the miners have been betrayed as well.
Yeah.
So I'm really surprised that, in South Yorkshire, people are still haven't got that same attitude. But Liverpool's very Irish. We don't feel English. So I grew up in that kind of, I suppose, radical upbringing, and so I want to make work that speaks to those kind of people who probably hate theatre a lot of the time. So, I mean, we made a piece of work a few years ago called The Shed Crew, which is a true story about a group of teenagers from from Hunslet who lived in a garden shed. And they lived with a guy called Bernie, who was a social worker who'd had a bit of a nervous breakdown. And Bernie Hare wrote a book, a non-fiction book about it, which was kind of fiction.
Right.
It was telling the story of these young feral kids, basically, a lot of whom ended up as heroin addicts, and I think he was an addict as well. And we did a version of that play which was in verse. And some of the Shed Crew who are still alive came to see it.
Right.
And I was terrified.
I bet.
Because I was thinking, if we get this wrong, we've insulted these people. And we did it at the Albion Electric's warehouse deliberately so that it wasn't a piece of theatre that you sit in a theatre and watch and go, oh, that's how the underclass live.
Right.
We wanted the audience to walk alongside them and be in the kitchen with them and be in the street with them. And sadly, a few months before we opened, the lead character, who in the book is called Urban, he died of bad heroin.
Oh.
So we were like, do we cancel it? Do we knock it on the head? And we spoke to Bernie, and he spoke to some of the Shed Crew, and they said, no, do it, but as a tribute to Urban.
Yeah.
So he rewrote it, and they all came to see it as part of the grieving process.
Oh, wow.
I was terrified. I mean, it's the most emotional thing out, but it sent shivers down your spine, you know. I mean, we cast a really great Leeds actor called Liddell Bryant, who was in the West Yorkshire Leeds Playhouse's ensemble last season.
Right.
And he's back. He's a great actor. Anyway, he was playing the role of a guy whose nickname is Skeeter. Because the real Skeeter came, and he's white.
Right.
And he was a bit drunk because I think he was a bit nervous. Skeeter walks on stage, and the real Skeeter goes, fucking hell, he's black! And it was brilliant because afterwards they were having selfies together and all the rest of it. But weirdly, I didn't meet any of the real crew until they came, and the people we'd cast looked like him.
Really?
They did, and it was weird. It was really, really weird. So there was moments like that which I'll never forget. And there was, like, we made a play about the miners' strike, about women against pit closures, about three sisters that Boff Worley from Chumbawamba wrote us. It was a beautiful musical. And we took it to the Durham Miners' Gala, and we played it at the Durham Miners' Hall in an audience full of Labour MPs and miners and NUM and all the rest of it. And there was a moment where Boff had written this gorgeous song, and it was set the Monday after Orgreave, and the sisters were at the fish counter, and one of the sisters' husband was at home, battered and bruised after Orgreave, lying on the sofa, and she's holding it together, and she's just trying to do her job and sell fish at the fish counter. And then the older sister starts singing this song called This Is War. And it was basically about you watch the BBC, you see your local police, you vote for your government, and you think they're there for you. Mm. And then something like Orgreave happens, and it's misreported by the BBC, and you aren't just watching the news, you are the news.
Yeah.
And you go, they hate us. They hate us. And she sang the song. It wasn't at the end of the scene, it was in the middle of the scene. And the whole audience just got to their feet and started whistling and shouting and screaming and clapping. And the girls just had to stand there, and you could see the girls were fighting back tears. But it was what that community needed.
Yeah.
And I went, that's what Red Ladder's about. It's about telling the stories of people whose stories don't really get told properly, and giving it back to them and going, we love you. You know, oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And what a great response to get as well.
Yeah.
From that audience.
Yeah.
When they lived it.
Again, it was nerve-wracking putting that play on. We took it to Hemsworth Pit Club, and Hemsworth was a pretty radical village near Pontefract. A lot of them got arrested at Orgreave. And I went to the committee, And I said, we'd like to bring you this play about the miners' strike. And what would we want to see the play about the miners' strike for? We fucking lived it. And I went, well, it's written by Boff Worley from Chumbawamba. So what? And we were like, yeah, well, maybe not then. It's a comedy. Oh, all right then. All right. It was great. And they talked all the way through it because they were remembering things.
Yeah.
And they absolutely loved it. And one of the actors, Stacey, she'd just been in This Is England. And so it's, good quality actors. And they went up to her and they said, oh, that were great. You should do this professionally. It was lovely. And the girl said, oh, yeah, maybe we will. Oh. It was just, I don't know, when you make theatre that touches people like that, even people who wouldn't, I mean, they came reluctantly to see that play, but it was in their it was in their pit club, so they thought they might as well.
Yeah.
And those same people probably won't come back to theatre necessarily, but you're telling their story and they're just like, thank you, oh, it's amazing.
Well, I saw Glory at the Albion Electric House.
Oh, yeah.
And which I loved.
It was freezing, wasn't it, though?
It was really freezing, yeah. But then that was quite nice as well, and Slung Low lent you the blankets.
Yes.
It's just a great, community effort again, everyone's sticking together.
Yeah.
And like you say, I think the thing with theatre is, if you come from a working class background and it's not in your lifestyle, it can seem quite sort of frightening and quite a daunting experience.
Yeah.
Whereas doing something at a place like the Albion Electric House, which is just, it's like an industrial unit, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it's just a warehouse, yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of takes away a little bit from that, and that you do it in a place where people who are dads and brothers who've worked in factories like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Part
of their life.
Yeah, it takes me to why I'm surprised I'm in theatre, really, because I had a massive crush on my English teacher.
Right.
I was like 14, 15, and I thought Mr. Taylor was just the bee's knees. He was a young teacher. He was really radical. He was really well dressed, and he was smart, and he was from that London, and he took us to see King Lear.
Yeah.
And it gets to the interval after the storm, and I come out and I say to my best mate Stu Mack, oh, it's fucking Boss, innit? And he goes, yeah, lad, it's great. And then I heard Mr. Taylor say to Bill Cook, the other English teacher, oh, God, that's the worst Lear I've ever seen. And I just felt stupid.
Oh, how
And I just
awful.
felt gutted. I was like, oh, I'm dead stupid. I don't get it. He says it's the worst Shakespeare he's ever seen, and I'm loving it. And I walked away just thinking, I'm an idiot.
Oh,
this is not my place, you know what I mean?
How crushing.
And a lot of people get that experience of theatre. And the only reason I got into it was I went to an all-boys comprehensive, and I used to get the bus, and this girl used to get the bus to the girls' Catholic school, and she was gorgeous. And every Wednesday night, she was at the bus stop going back into town, and I used to walk past her, and then one day I went, you're at this bus stop every Wednesday. Where are you going? She went, Liverpool Everyman Youth Theatre. Come with me. And I was like, all right.
And that's how you got into
theatre. And now we got into theatre because I fell in love with this girl and she asked me out.
Oh.
Sort of asked me out. She said, come with me to the youth theatre. And it was amazing. And that's when John McGrath ran Liverpool Everyman. And Pete Postlethwaite and Julie Walters were part of the ensemble.
Wow.
And about my first time, I was walking through a door and this big bloke with a really bad skin pushed past me, and I went, what's his fucking problem? And it was Pete Postlethwaite. And he was rushing somewhere, and I said it in a really loud typical Scouse voice, and he went, oh, sorry lad, sorry. I had no idea who he was, and it was like became my tribe. So that's how I got into it, with love.
Yeah.
But I still feel that feeling in the guts, which I suppose is a kind of class prejudice, but I think James Brining is doing a brilliant job of trying to open up Leeds Playhouse. Calling it Leeds Playhouse instead of West Yorkshire Playhouse for a start off is good. And he's trying to get bigger and bigger and wider audiences in. Mm-hmm. It's hard. But there is still that feeling. I still get that feeling if I hear somebody behind me going, would you like a glass of wine, darling? I did. Oh, damn it, I didn't get a programme. It's like, I can't bear it. It's like fingernails down the backbone. It's my class prejudice, but it's what keeps people away from theatre, I think.
I think so.
And what do you do about that? Because I think it's about entitlement. I think people who go to theatre who are from that background, they can't help it.
No.
But they do. It carries power, and it does intimidate. When we did the Damned United at what was the West Yorkshire Playhouse, I remember the ushers were really like nervous because there were lads coming in with 3 pints and clumping down the stairs and then going for a wee all the way through the play, up and down, in and out. Where's toilets? And it was just brilliant. I loved it. And I think James loved it as well, but I think it caused the ushers a bit of like, that's not how you behave in
the
theatre.
colliding of two worlds.
Yeah, you come in and you're supposed to be quiet and polite, but they, the opening night, a woman shouted out, "Fuck off, Cluffy!" And I thought, oh God, this is like pantomime. This is great. And it didn't happen again.
No.
But it is two worlds. You're right. It's two worlds.
But it's strange, isn't it? Because when you look at like the history of Shakespeare and stuff, and they talk about how that's how people used to react to plays. Isn't it?
Yeah. The groundlings, allegedly, and if you were rich, you could buy a stool and sit on the stage. I mean, how daft is that? That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Immersive theatre in 16th century. But yeah, it is a bit of a strange one. I still struggle with it. I sat in the wrong seat. I went to see Uncle Vanya at the Playhouse, and I sat in row J instead of row K or whatever. It's a thing to do. And this couple came along, and this guy said, I think you're sitting in our seat. I went, no, J31. He went, this is K. Either way. And I just felt, again, it was that same feeling of this is the worst Lear I've ever seen. And I wanted to go, you C word, but I didn't. I just went, I'm terribly, terribly sorry. Put my best posh voice on. I'm terribly sorry. And he tutted. And I was like,
sorry.
Whoa, like I don't belong here. I'm actually a theatre director, but I didn't say that. I didn't say, do you know who I am? But I felt as bad as that, and what do you do about that? How do you educate people who are educated but ignorant? Yeah, essentially.
I do some writing for South Leeds Life, and quite often, which is what the Playhouse do, is they basically give us 2 tickets to every performance.
Brilliant.
And then we put that out to the community. I usually do quite well out of it, actually, because I get to see extra plays, because people are not always that keen. But actually, over time, I've noticed more and more people are, and we ask them to write a review. It's only 500 words, and we always say to them, if you need help with that, anyone can help put that into words for you. And I think that's great. And again, that is getting people in. But also, I know I came on, lucky enough to come on one of your community acting courses when you were doing it at Middleton. Yeah. I ended up not being able to do the full thing because it was taking me such a long time to get there. But again, I think that's a great thing. And those people in Middleton, I mean, they've never seen a play in their life and they've never acted, but they got the way that you ran the course made everyone feel so comfortable in the room. Yeah. And got rid of all of those, don't worry about you being silly. It's all about letting yourself go, and all that mask work and stuff you did. I found it fascinating, but also seeing how everyone else engaged with the process. Yeah. And I know that you often do use community choirs in your performances. Yeah.
I mean, I think by fluke, every 4 years, 2008, we did Alice's play, which was a community play, which was to celebrate our 40th. And in 2012, we did Promised Land, which was about Leeds United and the Jewish experience of being a Leeds fan. And then in 2016, we did Leeds Lads, which was about the Somme. And then, so in 2020, we should do another community play. But community plays can be excruciatingly bad because they can be like, anybody can have a go. And we actually don't do that. We audition people. And what I'm proud about is people come to the auditions, and if they don't get in, they nearly always say, thank you so much. I've had a great day. I don't expect to get in, but I've had a lovely day. Thank you.
It's an experience, isn't it?
And I suppose some people go, well, that's a bit elitist auditioning, but what we're trying to give them a taste of is professional theatre. And you don't just walk into a job in professional theatre.
No, of course not.
And some people have auditioned and not got in, and auditioned 4 years later and not got in, and then they got into Leeds Lads. Right. And you go, you're ready now. And we've got a lad called Tom Swift, who's a plasterer from East Leeds. His first play in his life was Leeds Lads. He did Red Grit, the actor training, did Leeds Lads. He got a thirst for it, and he's done loads. He was in Shed Crew in the community chorus. He was in Mother Courage. He's done a few things at the Playhouse, and I've gone, do you want to do this professionally? And he said, yeah, I really, really want to do it. So we've auditioned him, and he's in our next play. And it's going to be hard work for him, but he says, oh, it's not as hard as plastering. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
I'm really, really proud of that. And I think that's like, there's all this talk about, oh, the working class don't get to drama school and all the rest of it. Well, they don't, and they never did. And we're not going to change that overnight.
No.
And you don't change it by just opening the doors and going, anybody can do it, because not everybody can do it.
It's a craft,
It's
same
a
as
craft.
anything else.
Yeah. No, I can't paint. I'd love to paint, watercolours or whatever. I can't. And maybe I'll have time to learn one day.
yeah.
But
practice with anything.
But I'm not going to say, I have a right to paint, and here's my exhibition. Everyone will go, this is naff. Who did that? So, it's the same with that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're doing our next Red Grit, which is the actor training, we hope, at Gipton Working Men's Club.
Right.
So we try and take it out to, the outskirts, if you like. Can't always do that. Sometimes we do it in the city centre, but we try and offer it up to people who wouldn't go near it normally.
Yeah.
And it's not, some people drop out. They do a couple of sessions and go, it's not for me, it's too weird. But
Because it's a lot about letting yourself go and dropping your barriers, and that can be difficult for anybody, but I imagine particularly so for working class people.
Well, yeah, and the more I read about poverty, oh God, that sounds really middle class. I'm doing a lot of research about austerity and poverty, which is interesting because Alice is doing the same. You've just been talking to Alice Nutter, and she's doing the same. And I'm reading about it because I was very lucky. I grew up in a working class family, but everyone was in work. In fact, we had a big family, and there must have been 6 wages coming into that house. It's a bit like Bread.
Yeah,
that sitcom. That show. It was a bit like that, you know what I mean? And so we weren't rich, but we weren't poor.
Yeah.
But I went to school with lads who were genuinely poor, and I think it's worse now.
Yeah.
If anything.
I think it's not just that it's worse. There's like some sort of rhetoric about, it's poor people's fault.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
That's come through. I don't want to blame everything on Margaret Thatcher, but I think from Thatcher onwards, that is there's no such thing as society. In other words, you do everything yourself. And if you're poor, you're just rubbish, basically.
Yeah, it's your fault.
Yeah, you're feckless.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting at the moment is I know people who are really proud. They're really proud, and they've got 3 jobs, and their kids are immaculate, and they're in the best school uniform, and but they need to go to a food bank. There's a food bank in Halifax where you can buy a £10 box, which is like sort of saying, well, it's not quite as embarrassing as having a free one. I think that's even worse, really. That's like saying you are too feckless to go shopping, so we'll do it for you. I think we're in a dark place at the moment, and I really want to try and. That's what the next piece of work I want to make is going to be about. If we can, I don't want to make an I, Daniel Blake that's depressing. I want to make something that says a lot of people at the moment are heroes. They are
definitely.
There's no dignity in poverty, but they have pride and they deserve respect.
Yeah.
And they are fighting a daily battle.
Yeah.
And one element of that daily battle comes out, and everything will fall apart, and they're homeless or destitute. Yeah. They're that close to it. It's skin thin.
Yeah, it's on a knife edge, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm really excited about. I'm going to be working with a Scottish theatre maker called Cora Bissett. She is just amazing. She's a sort of writer, theatre director, musician, actor. She's got her own show at the moment called What Girls Are Made Of, which is about when she was 17, she was in a band called the Darling Hearts.
Right.
And they went massive, and they supported Radiohead, and they went on tour with big bands, stuff like that. But they were just kids, and they got stung with a 45,000 tax bill. Oh. That's how much money they were making, and they hadn't saved, didn't know anything about it, so they had to just disband.
Oh, so
and she's
sad.
made this amazing gig theatre with a band, and she's dedicated to her 2-year-old daughter about women can be strong. Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That sounds great.
So I want to make this piece with her. I'm in a place where I'm a bit nervous about it because I don't really know what it is yet. But there's a rapper from Glasgow called Loki, and he's called Darren McGurvey, and his childhood is traumatic. I mean, it's proper hardcore, drunken mother, violence. And what he talks about is when you live in a household like that, you don't realise it's dysfunctional.
You don't know any different.
Don't know any different. You don't know that your mum holding a bread knife to your throat is extreme. Oh. You just think she's just a bit angry.
Oh,
oh my God. Yeah. And I want to talk to him about how do we do this without it being poverty porn?
Yeah.
How do we do it so that people go, God, I'm lucky. I am so lucky. And I want to do things to help people who are going through that, you know.
And just to present people as human beings, all-round human beings.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to understand the choices that people have to make in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, what basically, without generalising, you can only behave in those extreme ways like that if you're traumatised. Mm-hmm. It's a mental health issue, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, and alcoholism and taking drugs and all these things, you know, they are to do with a deep desire to be happy. Yeah. That's all we want. That's all we want, all of us.
Of course.
We were in India for, my wife and kids were there for 3 months and I was there for 6 months earlier this year. And it was obviously a powerful experience. It's a cliche to say it changed my life, but it was a powerful experience. But to see another kind of poverty.
Oh, I know. You know. We went to India, and I just want to clarify, I'm in no way rich. I won a quiz show, and I won 2,800 quid.
Yeah.
And my son was just getting to the age where he was never going to come on holiday with us before, and we were going to go to New York, but Donald Trump had just got in. I thought, I don't want to go at this time.
Yeah.
So I looked into it, and in fact, we'd watched that Marigold Hotel, where the older people go around.
Yeah.
And said, today, let's go to India. And oh my God, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're going straight from, it's like it's, I mean, you know it already from being from a working class background here in Leeds.
Yeah.
But then you go to India and it's like the lap of luxury literally next to kids in a slum. And I know what you're saying, you don't want to sound like you're saying the cliches and stuff, but it's genuinely true that you go to a place like that and it really does make you see that this is global.
Yeah. And I mean, for my kids who are now, they're 13 and 10, but they were 12 and 9, 12 and 10 when they were there. Taking them, they went to school in the jungle in a little school run by hippies, of course, you know, a yogi art school. But taking them to school on the scooter, which of course would be illegal in this country, both of them on the scooter, and going past things like there was a load of people on the side of the road, and my daughter shouted at me, "What are they doing?" I went, "Oh, they're going to work. They're waiting to be picked up. There'll be a lorry coming to get them." "Oh, where are they working?" I went, "In the fields." And she went, "All right." She went, "What about the kids?" I went, "They're going to work." And she was like, "Oh." You know, and I knew that the cogs were turning. I mean, later on she said, "Can I have a mango lassi?" You know what I mean? But the cogs were turning, and she was seeing kids her age who were never going to go to school. And she was going to school on the back of a scooter, you know, and having a lovely time in this jungle arts school, you know. So it was amazing for that. But also for them to see the plastic everywhere in the jungle, plastic bottles, plastic bags everywhere. Yeah. They've got nowhere to hide it. No. We sweep it under the carpet in this country. We're just as bad for pollution.
We are, yeah.
But and I think we've got systems.
And you also realise that, I tell you what got me, it was that, I mean, obviously I've always known about, you know, the white privilege thing. But, and especially because I come from a poor background, and then to go somewhere where you're treated like you're rich and which I know I am comparably to them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that to me was massively eye opening and made me realise exactly how. I never thought of myself as particularly privileged. Do you know what I mean? I'm a working class woman.
Yeah.
But going there made me realise I've already been born into it.
Absolutely.
And I had no choice in that, and this is where I am.
Yeah.
And then you have to appreciate that, and you carry that with you, I think, after that.
What I really want to see is more. We've got the internet, for goodness sake. More global solidarity and understanding, so that workers who are struggling, say, in a factory in Warrington, will connect on the internet with workers who make bricks in Delhi,
Yeah.
and go, oh, the people in Warrington are on strike. What can you do to help? You know,
Yeah.
not what can we do to help you?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's international socialism, basically. It's international workers. The vast majority of the planet graft and have to. They
Yeah.
have to work.
Yeah,
if they
yeah.
don't work, they don't feed their kids. And that's most of us. That's my definition of the working class. I know that's incredibly glib, but if I stop work tomorrow, we can't pay our rent.
Yeah, same, yeah. Yeah.
And I haven't really got a pension, so I
No.
don't know when I'm going to stop. So I'm working class, and I think that's a very broad generalisation of it. But I think people who are aspirational and don't want to be called working class, I say to them, have you got enough money to stop work now for good? And they go, don't be daft. And well, were you working class then?
Yeah.
And so there is this kind of, I suppose Tony Blair's partly to blame as well, because he was trying to say there's no such thing as the working class anymore.
Do you know that man? I was a single parent when he was in, and I'd always been a Labour supporter, and I really felt like he sold me down the river.
Yeah. I don't know I don't think party politics works anymore.
No, it doesn't.
I look at the website of the Green Party and I agree with everything on there, but they're not going to get anywhere, are they?
No, but then it's that whole thing, isn't it? Like, how long do you believe stuff like that? How long do you let that rhetoric?
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying. It sometimes it really gets my nerves, because we have this big thing about democracy, freedom, and and bloody America with their democracy and freedom and human rights and stuff, and it's actually just fake talk.
Yeah.
And like at the moment, I really don't feel like there's an awful lot of choice between Conservative and Labour, and we've been left in a really hard place. And all this stuff about, do we have a second referendum? It's all we're all talking in this massive system that doesn't actually change anything, and you don't actually have any choice. No. And it's becoming more and more apparent every day to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be divorced from the political process. And I went through a little bit of a phase. I was like, is there any point in voting? Even though, I know women died for me to have the right to do this, and I have always done it.
Yeah.
But how awful to get to a point where you feel like you go and do the thing, but it's like a drop in the ocean, and it actually doesn't make a huge amount of difference.
No. Well, Boff wrote us this beautiful one-woman musical called Wrong'un, which is about a working-class suffragette from Nelson in Lancashire. And he wrote it for my wife. And Ella did it for like 80-odd performances, and then she thought, I've had enough now. But she used to get booked by like Unite the Union and people like this at Women's Week. And it was a harrowing play at one point. It was very funny, but also there was a bit where it described force feeding, which is torture.
God, yeah.
And people would pass out. Quite regularly, men would pass out at that point in the play. But Ella, a bit like me, is kind of more of an anarchist than anything. And people would say, ask her questions about it after the show. And she would say, if Annie Wilde, who's the character, was alive now, she wouldn't vote.
No.
And they were like, oh, what? Trade unionists, women died for the vote. And she said, I don't think she would vote.
No.
I think she would feel let down, betrayed. There are some wonderful women MPs. I love Laura Pidcock from Durham. She's amazing. And there's Rebecca with the double-barrelled name from Salford, I think. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah, I think I follow her on Twitter.
Yeah, I do as well. And then there's Angela Thingy, the education. I don't really know these people, but there are some great women in the Labour Party. But I think the Labour Party, it's hamstrung very often by the unions. The infighting in the unions is ridiculous.
I just think as well, I know there's, I don't want to get into politics too much.
No.
I do get very vehement. But the whole thing with Jeremy Corbyn, I feel like he had it in the palm of his hand when he went to Glastonbury, and Stormzy was behind him, and he had the kids. Yeah. The kids who would be previously to that had felt completely out of the political system.
He did a rally at Tranmere Rovers in Birkenhead, and that's the Scousers started singing, oh, Jeremy Corbyn. And that was it.
Like he had it in his grasp.
Yeah.
And then he let it go.
And I think partly it's because my theory is he doesn't believe in the old-fashioned leadership. I think he's too nice.
I think so. He's almost too nice for this kind of Mickey Mouse bullshit politics.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the trouble with this kind of politics. It's
adversarial.
It's
very difficult.
It was invented by the public schools. It's debating.
I know, which is again that needs to be stopped.
Yeah. The whole Parliament, the whole House of Commons.
The black rod and
It's
the
always
bloody, do you know what I
ridiculous.
mean?
It's like, it's nothing to do with the rest of us
No,
at all.
and like actually, this whole thing with the, the mortgages on the second house and stuff, none of that would happen if it wasn't so bloody London centric.
Yeah.
If you chose somewhere in the middle of the country like Birmingham or somewhere like that,
Yeah.
and you did everything by bloody Skype, so that
Yeah.
women who are pregnant can still be MPs.
Yeah.
And if you showed kids you're representing your area that you come from,
Yeah.
but that we're not at that point yet.
We could do that in a weekend.
Yeah.
Because we've got the technology. We could go, okay, it doesn't work. Let's start from scratch. But they're terrified of it because ultimately they're there for power. Really,
They
a lot
are,
of them.
yeah.
I mean, Boris Johnson, Trump, they're identical. They are individuals
So
who are there
depressing.
for power.
Yeah.
And they have no principles whatsoever.
No principles. And you know that really, I mean, Boris, I don't think he'll last that long, to be honest. I think he's got to mess up at some point.
I said that about Trump. But,
Well, yeah, it's so awful. But with Boris, what I think is, he's looking at the end game. He's thinking about the books he's going to be able to write about being the Prime Minister. He's looking at the after dinner speaking circuit.
Yeah.
So you get people who have never gone in there with the right idea in the first place. Anyway.
Well, Blair on the sidelines is always chipping away at Labour, but he's made a packet of being the ex-Prime Minister.
I know.
I mean, let him. The thing is, money... yeah, we live in a system which is driven by money, but if that is your sole driving force, then you're soulless.
Yeah.
That's my...
And you're not going to change that person.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
God, we're getting a bit serious.
I
aren't we?
know. So tell us about your upcoming production.
Well, at the moment, we are about to go into rehearsal for this little play written by Chris O'Connor called The Parting Glass.
Right.
He wrote a solo play called The Life and Soul, which was autobiographical to a certain extent about male depression.
Okay.
And it was a one-man play that was 32 minutes long that we played in pubs. And it's like stand-up. It's really funny, but it's got a very, very dark twist. And it's basically about the epidemic of male depression, which is out of control in most countries, most Western countries. We took it to Derry and we played it in Republican clubs as well as loyalist clubs. And it was exactly the same story. Whatever side of the divide, that men are committing suicide in droves. And then the audiences would say, "Oh, it's brilliant, but what about the people who live on afterwards?"
Okay.
And so we thought, yeah. And a social worker friend of mine said, if one of his clients is thinking of ending his life, he will say, "Look, it's not the end. When you do that, it's the beginning. The shit hits the fan, and all your relatives have to live with it." And that's what stops people from doing it. Very often they reconsider, and so we've expanded the play. Chris has included the character of a girlfriend, and she obviously survives the boyfriend, and we get a short bit at the end of the play, which is where we reflect on what it's like for her living on.
Right.
So it sounds really it sounds really serious, but I think it is really funny in places. And touching and beautiful. He's a great writer. It's very Leeds Irish because that's what Chris is. It's got a scene at Elland Road. It's got all that stuff that people would want to see. And we've just cast it. And Tom Swift's going to do it, the plasterer. And a lovely BAME actress called Elise is going to be the girlfriend. And we're going to rehearsal in September. And then it's going to tour men's groups across Leeds, as well as doing Hunslet Rugby Club, Bitmo, where we did the Red Grip. There's a guy called Martin Newton who runs Health for All, I think it is. He wants it in Middleton.
Excellent.
So we're taking it to closed groups. There's a guy called Damien who runs a group in Chapeltown, Feel Good Factor, I think they're called. There's Inkwell. And they're all like arts and minds. It's all mental health groups, basically.
Yeah.
And then we hope we will take that to then theatres after that.
Yeah.
And we're developing another play called Smile Club,
Okay.
which is about everyday sexism. And it's written like Black Mirror.
Right.
So it's about a woman who every day she goes through the ticket barrier and it won't work. And the guy goes, "I'll let you through if you give me a smile." And, "Oh, you've got lovely eyes. Oh, you look nice today."
That'd be so up my street.
And she just puts up with it, and then she's made redundant by a really sexist boss, and her leaving present is this really crap scent perfume, and she throws it in her bag, and she doesn't know that in throwing it in her bag she's broken the bottle, and she gets to the ticket barrier and she can see her train at the platform, and the guy gives her the usual, "You look gorgeous today, come on, give me a smile," and she puts her hand in her bag and just pulls out this bottle and hits him with it, and doesn't know that it's broken, and she's killed him.
Oh my God.
So she's given a choice. You can have life imprisonment, or you can go to the Smile Club. And the Smile Club is this unit where they teach women to be demure and all that stuff. It's really funny. It's really
great.
Black Mirror. And Andrea Heaton's writing it, and she's going to perform it. So we're going to develop that, and that'll hopefully go out on tour across the UK in spring.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to making that. It should be good.
It must be really lovely for you. Is it really lovely for you to have people come to these great stories, and when you're reading them, I imagine that you straight away you're thinking about how the character's going to be, how it's going to be set. I bet that's lovely, is it?
I am the luckiest person in the world. I love my job in that way. I there's parts of the job which really get me down, like spreadsheets and budgets and all that kind of stuff, which I just don't understand. It's not my skill set. I'm an artist. But I am so lucky. I've got a dream job, and yeah, it's about, God, I've got an opportunity, I suppose, to try and change things. People say, can art change things? I think art can.
100%.
Yeah.
And any art form.
Yeah. A lot of artists say it can't. It's delusional to say that. I go, well, why do you do it then?
Yeah.
What's the point? When I'm on my deathbed, I want to be able to say, and things will be crazy. Things are getting crazy. Let's be honest. My kids will go, "What did you do, old man?" I'll go, "Well, I made a few plays."
Yeah, but I don't think. But I think that's really playing it down, because you've got to think about the subjects of the plays that you wrote and the people's lives who they'll touch. You might never get that feedback. You might never hear that.
No,
but it'll have meant a lot in different ways to so many people.
Yeah, I mean, like the Shed Crew, they won't ever come to theatre again. We're not trying to recruit people to come to theatre.
No.
We're giving them something, and it's a gift, and if we get it right, they'll never forget it.
No.
And like that moment when the whole audience stood up and shouted bravo at the song about Orgreave, that's because it was raw and it touched them,
And you're reflecting their life experience.
Yeah.
And you're also validating it and saying that these stories were important.
Yeah.
When they may never have, you might not see that on the BBC or in a soap or whatever.
No.
To me, that's great work.
Yeah. It's kind of, when Ella did the suffragette play, she did it at Hebden Bridge Arts Centre, and full of women. It was great. And then we sat in the bar and had a quick pint, and then we came out, and there was a woman sitting on the steps crying her eyes out. I went, "Oh, what's up?" She said, "I've just seen your play." She said, "And I've got a PhD. I'm quite middle class, but all I do is wash up the dishes and change nappies. I just don't do anything." And we went, "Well, you can, you will one day." She said, "Yeah, I'll join 38 Degrees." And I just thought that was lovely. And she said, "What you're doing is kind of political activism, really."
It is.
With entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that sounds so pretentious. But
I don't think it does. I think you just feel like it does because you talk about the stuff that you're doing. But yeah, from outside looking in, I think you're doing brilliant stuff.
Great. Yeah, good.
So we always ask our guests, and I know you're a little bit worried about this particular question, to tell us something that you really love about Leeds.
Well, I've thought about it, and I'm glad I thought about it because I had a love-hate relationship with the city, partly to do with the fact that I only came here twice before I lived here.
Right.
I came here to Allen Road to see Liverpool play and had pretty terrifying experience being chased by some big Leeds fans as a teenager. And then I came back as a student because I was a student at Sheffield Uni. And I came up to see the Jam at Queen's Hall, which doesn't exist anymore.
No.
A big sort of like aircraft hangar of a place. And it was the roughest gig I've ever been to. Paul Weller was really getting angry with the crowd because he said, "Oh, we're not mods." I'm like, "Of course you're mods. You dress like mods." That's ridiculous. Because they were singing, "We are the mods, we are the mods." And then a load of big lads in flight suits with skinheads came running in and were smacking people everywhere. It was terrifying. I thought, Leeds is terrifying. And also, as I remember, when I was 13, my best mate Beanie was an Everton fan. So when Liverpool were away, I'd go to watch Everton with him and keep my mouth shut. And then one day, Leeds were playing Everton, and we fell out on the way. So to piss him off, I went in the away end.
Oh.
And it was terrifying.
I bet.
I was right in the middle of this packed, like 65,000. It was packed in. You could stand up with all these Leeds who hated Scousers. And I'm going, what have I done? What have I done? I was punishing me mate. And I was absolutely, I thought, God, Leeds is the most scary place in the world. And then I came up to live here. And what I've thought about, what I love about it is it's so diverse. Mm-hmm. It's so diverse.
Yeah.
And like I do a bit of teaching sometimes at Northern School of Contemporary Dance, which is in Chapeltown. And I love Chapeltown. And I know Chapeltown's kind of rough and you get gunshots and all kinds of stuff going on. But
I totally agree with you.
Amazing.
I know it's when we first moved here, we just got told definitely don't get a house in Chapeltown. I mean, we live in Beeston and it's not, it's not that much different.
Yeah.
But actually, I bloody love Chapeltown for exactly those reasons.
Yeah.
It just feels so diverse and multicultural and,
and welcoming.
Colourful and welcoming.
Yeah, I go and have my lunch at Dutch Pot, which is this amazing, rice and peas place. Yeah. And I've never had saltfish before. And I went, what's that? And they was like, really laughing at me, and they served it up and they let me taste it, and every time I go back, they go, oh, it's the Scouse. I daren't do a West Indian accent, but with a Western accent, they go, it's the Scouse man, and I love it. I really love it, and I love like the fact that you got Hare Hills with its big Muslim population, and then you got North Leeds with its Jewish population. Mm-hmm. And it really is like, it does feel like the city of sanctuary. It does feel there's a whole Afghan community now. I met this amazing Afghan woman in Little London who runs an Afghan women's centre, women's group. Really powerful woman with incredible traumatic story, but so powerful. And even though Liverpool's a port, it's not as multicultural as Leeds by any means.
Yeah.
It's got a big Chinatown, but it's not really, it's got a bit of a black population, but considering it was a slave port,
you'd imagine it would be more diverse, wouldn't it?
It's not as diverse as Leeds at all. So that's what I love about Leeds.
Yeah, that's great. Good answer. I'm so glad that you found something. And then we always ask somebody, what do you think is not so great about Leeds?
Well, again, I suppose, this is my ideology, but it does feel more than Manchester, Sheffield and Liverpool that it is like dedicated to consumerism.
Do you know, it's so funny that we've had that as a recurring theme.
Yeah.
And just yesterday, I went to the Corn Exchange to interview shopkeepers. Yeah. And it was for Independent Leeds, which is a great publication.
Yeah.
But actually speaking to the shop owners, I'm going to have to temper how I write that article because of the same thing. They were talking about, they feel like they get a little bit left out.
Yeah.
They're the only independent people. The money seems to be going into these big brands.
Yeah.
In the big shiny shopping centres.
I mean, you've got Victoria Gate, which seems to me the epitome of consumerism.
It really is.
It is just shiny stuff that you don't need, that's expensive. So underpants that nobody can afford.
I can't afford to go in there.
How daft is that? But there's a sense that Leeds is proud of that. Mm. And I've just been on the train, Saturday morning, lots of working class people with money to burn, and they go every Saturday and their leisure activity is buying stuff. Yeah. And I'm not slagging them off. I feel they've been brainwashed.
Yeah.
I feel they have to do that because their parents and their grandparents definitely couldn't. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a telly for a lot of my childhood, but it hasn't made me go and buy an 18-foot TV screen.
No.
But I could. My cousin has done a bit of that. He's very much into consumerism, and so that's what I think is sad, because I think culturally, I know Nick had said, at one time the city was a bit soulless, but I think it's really great the way it's got a cultural quarter now. With we're at Yorkshire Dance, and there's Leeds Playhouse, and there's Northern Ballet, and there's Phoenix Dance, and there's Lab Arts, and there's East Street Arts. It's really buzzy, and Leeds College of Music, and then out of the city we got Northern School of Contemporary Dance. There's a lot of art that happens in Leeds, and I love that.
I do.
But put that alongside places like Victoria Gate and you go, what's that about? It's a cathedral to spending money.
Exactly that.
And you're not welcome.
No.
If you haven't got money,
no.
You're not welcome.
It's one of those places where I always feel like, I think it's well because I've come from a working class background, but it's like if a shopkeeper comes up to me in a shop and says, can I help you? I always feel like, oh my God, do I look like I'm stealing something?
Yeah.
And it's very much that, it has that feeling in there. In fact, I think whenever I go in there, I'll occasionally go to John Lewis to get like a nice present for a niece or a nephew.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel right in there. It's too shiny.
I've never been into Harvey Nicks. I won't go into Harvey Nicks. That's childish, I know, but why would I go there? That's not somewhere that I don't aspire to go in there. That's why. Whereas a lot of people do, you see.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them, but I do believe they've been brainwashed.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about it. And I feel sad, but I mean, I feel sad for the market. Whether the market will be affected by Victoria Gate, but there was talk of it even closing down at one point.
I know, and that would be a travesty because it's the biggest covered market in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favourite places to go.
Yeah.
Because you can go in there, you can get anything, and it's people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
And, markets are part of a working class city's heritage.
Yeah. And you don't have to buy something when you go there.
No, you don't.
You can use it as a social centre. And for some people, maybe with mental health problems or whatever, if they didn't have that place to go to in the city centre, they would stay in Seacroft or Gipton or wherever it is, and they would stay in their houses, and they would get more and more depressed. They wouldn't get any sunshine. They wouldn't meet anybody else. And city centres across the UK are losing those public spaces. Plymouth, that's where I used to live. Plymouth is a deprived place. It's a naval port, and it's the arse end of the country. Nobody goes there. And they built a brand new shopping centre like Victoria Gate, and there was a big sign, no hoodies.
Oh, what?
So I went and put my hoodie up on,
Did you?
and I put my hoodie up and walked in, and this young spotty guy with the big built sort of like security man said, "Excuse me, sir, take your hoodie off." And I went, "No, I'm 55, I'm not a teenager, and I'm cold. I'm not taking my hoodie off. I'll have to escort you out." I went, "You try it, mate." And I thought he could batter me, but I was going to cause a scene. I was thinking, I wonder if he'll radio for the police. I really want him to radio.
Because
I want to be
it's not against
arrested.
the bloody law, is
Yeah,
it?
it's a public space, but it's not a public space because those places are owned by
I know, and
companies.
that's another big.
God, we've been so political on this.
It's been one of those sort of days. I think Alice started it off.
Oh yeah, she's brought the atmosphere in.
And then the thing that we always ask people is, even if you've been a resident of Leeds for a very long time, can you tell us about something that is a hidden gem that people may not know about?
Well, it may not be a hidden gem, but it's a little gem for me, and it's Wharf Chambers,
Okay.
which used to be the Common Place. And it's a radical space and a radical bar, and it's in Wharf Street, is it called? Off the Calls.
Yeah.
And when it was the Common Place, it was more radical than it is now. It's kind of a little bit trendy now, and it sells like craft beers and stuff like that. But radical meetings take place there. And I was there once when it was raided by the police.
Really?
Yeah, and it was raided because we were. I was part of climate camp, and we were having a climate camp planning meeting.
And it got raided
And
by the police.
Somebody told the police, and they raided it. And we were like, "What do you want to do?" And they took everyone's high-vis vests off us. And loads of people wore high-vis because they were cyclists, because they were environmentalists.
Oh, my goodness.
And they took their high-vis because they were saying you were impersonating police.
What the
What?
hell? What about builders?
I know. And it's like it was farcical, but basically they were just trying to break up the meeting.
Right.
And the meeting was planning part of the occupation of Kingsnorth Power Station, which is 10 years ago now, summer 2009. And I was part of that occupation, and it was the most recent time I've seen pretty heavy police violence, basically. 2,000 police from police forces all over the country. Because what we were doing was basically challenging a corporation. We were challenging the energy power people.
And it just seems so wrong, doesn't it, that the police can come along and take a role in that, take a side.
Yeah. I mean, my cousin was a policeman, and so I understand the role of the police, and I think we need a police force, obviously. I've lived in crime-ridden areas of Liverpool and London and places like that. But what I've also learned is you can de-escalate crime and you can de-escalate violence. There's another way of doing it.
Of course.
I'm, there are going to be maybe police listening. I doubt whether there'll be police listening to this, but who knows? They'll know, what's he talking about? I think they've also been the victims of austerity as well.
Oh, definitely.
And they're up against it.
Definitely, and they're putting their lives on the line.
Yeah, and consequently, they can't do their jobs properly.
No.
But which also means they're stressed, which also means they are traumatized, which also might mean that they take it out sometimes on people. Mm-hmm. I've seen it happen,
And conversely, they're also dealing with a population that, again, is increasingly stressed.
And angry.
And threatened.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be a happy...
Well, it's horrifying, isn't it, at bonfire night when people attack firemen? What's that about? And you go, this is a sick society when that's happening.
So, yeah. But Wharf Chambers, they still do things now?
Yeah. Alice's partner, Keir, wrote a book and had it published, and he launched it there a few months back.
Right.
Yeah.
I must
called
check that
Left
out.
Generation. I think it's called Left Generation.
Oh, I'll have to definitely get hold on
which
that.
is interesting. And and it's full of kind of quirky, anarchistic type, punky type people.
So who runs it? Like, what's
I think
the
it's a
history of it?
collective. I think it's always been a collective, and that's
Right.
why it's always been seen as a threat by the establishment. So it's one of the oldest ones. So I don't know when it was opened, but a long time ago, like early part of the 20th century, I think. And it was where radicals met to, well, very often plan actions. And
I can't believe I don't know about it.
well, I think a lot of people don't, but it's a great little place.
And so can you sort of sign up to go to talks and
Yeah. You can just walk in and have a drink.
Yeah.
So it's Wharf. Is it Wharf Street or Wharf Road? I can't remember.
But I think I know what you mean. It's just behind. Is it just behind the calls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's past the curve.
Sort of behind the palace.
Yeah. But across the road to the palace.
Right.
Across the road to the palace. Opposite the Lamb and Flag, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Opposite there. Yeah.
Well, that is a brilliant gem.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm not
lots
even
of
from
mixture.
Leeds.
Well done. Well, thank you so much for coming along and talking to us.
Pleasure. It's been great. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. And good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
And hopefully everyone will get out there and see your stuff.
Great.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Rod Dixon, I told you, what a great guest. He talks about so many fantastic things. I'm really looking forward to going and seeing The Smile Club about everyday sexism, the play that he talks about by Andrea Heaton, and that will be touring in the UK in spring. The current production that they're doing about male depression and the people left behind by suicide sounds like a really great thing to go along and see. Touching, beautiful, funny in places, as Rod says, acted by Tom Riley and written by Chris O'Connor. That will be touring men's groups in Leeds and then theatres. This is the last podcast that we actually recorded in the studio. Things have changed somewhat since then. We have a slightly different environment to record these days, and this is where I'm currently recording this outro. At the end of this episode, you'll get to hear Bleak House Farm by the Gordons. The Gordons are a collection of collaborators that have been brought together by Paul Bryce. I think you're going to really enjoy the song. See you next time when we'll be speaking to Bruce Davies on episode 9.
We've been waiting in this dustbin. Nothing, I don't know which way this will go. My love, my love. She said, let's take an axe to the old shirt. Let's smash the